You know, the routine. It's um it's almost a religious ritual for the modern responsible adult. You wake up, you stumble into the kitchen, the coffee isn't even brewed yet, and there it is right on the counter, the pill organizer.
Yeah, Monday through Sunday, little plastic doors clicking open.
Exactly. You pop that multivitamin, maybe a fish oil, maybe some vitamin D, you down it with a glass of water, and you just mentally check the box.
Yeah.
You say to yourself, I have done my part. I am healthy.
It's the ultimate, it's the ultimate I've got my life together signal. It's right up there with making your bed and flossing.
Right. But here is the conflict we are really digging into today, and it is a deeply frustrating one. You do that for 6 months. You are disciplined. You literally never miss a day.
Right.
But you are still exhausted at 2 in the afternoon. Your nails are still breaking every time you try to open a soda can. You go to the doctor, you get your blood work done, and surprise, you are clinically deficient in the very nutrients you have been swallowing every single morning.
It is incredibly demoralizing. It makes you feel like the whole industry is a scam, or worse, you start to think that your own body is just broken.
And looking at the data, we pulled some recent numbers on this. This isn't some niche issue. We were talking about over 79% of American adults taking dietary supplements.
Which is a massive chunk of the population.
Huge. And yet, when we look at the epidemiological data, nutrient deficiency rates are stubbornly high. They just aren't dropping the way you would expect if 80% of us were effectively supplementing.
Exactly. If the pills work the way we assume they do, straight math, pill goes in, levels go up, we should be the healthiest, most nutrient-dense society in human history.
Yeah.
We aren't. We are basically overfed and undernourished.
So that is the hook for today's deep dive. If you are doing the right thing but getting a completely wrong result, it is probably not a discipline problem. You aren't forgetting to take the pill. It's a biology problem.
Precisely. Most multivitamins simply do not work the way we think they do. There is a massive disconnect, a biological canyon, really, between swallowing a pill and that nutrient actually entering your cell to do work.
So let's set the stage real quick. I'm Parker. I'm a specialist, completely obsessed with the practical application of health data. Like, how do we actually use this stuff to change our lives without needing a PhD?
And I'm Blake. I'm a specialist focused on the clinical mechanisms. I want to know the why. Why does the cell accept this nutrient and completely reject that one? What is actually happening on the microscopic level?
And our mission today is to bridge that gap for you. We're going to explain why that expensive bottle of vitamins on your counter might be effectively useless and exactly how to fix it. We are going deep into the chemistry of bioavailability, the timing errors that are probably sabotaging your absorption, and the hidden barriers in your gut that might be blocking everything.
And we're going to get into genetics too, specifically why your own DNA might be actively fighting against that generic multivitamin you bought at the grocery store.
Before we jump into the deep end, just the standard housekeeping. Everything we discuss today is for informational purposes only. We are analyzing data and sources, but this does not constitute medical advice. Please, always consult your physician before you go changing your regimen or tossing out your medicine cabinet.
Always. Don't play doctor on yourself based on a deep dive.
Okay, let's unpack the first big hurdle. Bioavailability. This is a word that gets thrown around a lot in, biohacking circles, but I feel like it's often really misunderstood. It sounds like marketing jargon. What does it actually mean in this specific context?
It is the single most important concept to understand if you are spending even $1 on supplements. Bioavailability refers to the proportion of a nutrient that actually enters your bloodstream and becomes available for your body to use.
So just because it's in the pill doesn't mean it ends up in me.
Exactly. Think of it this way. You can mail a letter to your friend, but if the mailman throws it in the sewer halfway there, your friend never reads it. It doesn't matter what beautiful things you wrote inside.
That makes perfect sense.
And the label trap is what gets most people. You pick up a bottle, you turn it over, and it says, magnesium, 100% of daily value. You think, great, I'm covered.
Yeah, you bought the insurance policy, you trust the math on the back of the bottle.
But your body might only be accessing a tiny fraction of that 100%. The rest is literally just passing through you.
Let's get practical here. Let's do the challenge we talked about in the pre-show. If you are listening to this at home, or if you can pull up a label on your phone, go grab your multivitamin bottle. Seriously, go get it right now. We are going to look at the forms.
This is where the truth really comes out. Look at the magnesium line. Does it say magnesium oxide?
If it does, what does that imply? Because oxide sounds, standard. like basic chemistry. It sounds like something that should be in there.
Magnesium oxide is the most common form found in generic multivitamins. It is also, biologically speaking, one of the absolutely poorest forms you can ingest. The absorption rate is estimated to be around 4%.
Wait, hold on, 4%?
4%, yeah.
So if the label says 400 milligrams, which is a pretty standard dose,
Oh.
I'm thinking I'm getting 400 milligrams. But biologically, I'm getting, where is that math, like 16 milligrams?
Roughly, yes. 16 milligrams. And here is the kicker. Where does the other 384 milligrams go? It doesn't just vanish into thin air.
It has to go somewhere.
It stays in your intestines, and because magnesium oxide is essentially a salt, it draws water into the bowel through osmosis.
Oh, I see exactly where this is going.
Yeah, this is why cheap magnesium supplements give people loose stools or straight-up diarrhea. You aren't absorbing it at all. You are just flushing it out. You think you are paying for a nutrient, but you're actually just buying a really inefficient laxative.
That is wild. Why on earth do companies use it then? Is it just that they're cheap and evil?
Well, cost is a huge factor, sure. Oxide is dirt cheap compared to other forms. But there's also a physical, practical manufacturing reason. The magnesium oxide molecule is very, very small.
Small. Why does the physical size matter in a pill?
If you are a manufacturer trying to cram 30 different vitamins and minerals into a single one-a-day pill, space is at an absolute premium. You can't have the pill be the size of a golf ball, right? Nobody would swallow it.
Right, nobody wants a horse pill.
Exactly. So magnesium oxide takes up very little physical room. They can pack a high dose on the label. Look at us. We have 400 milligrams without making the actual pill huge.
Okay, that makes total sense from a logistics standpoint.
Yeah.
It's great for the manufacturer, but it's completely terrible for the consumer outcome. So, if oxide is the villain in this story, what is the hero? What should people actually be looking for?
You want to look for magnesium glycinate.
Glycinate. Okay, why is that one better?
In this form, the magnesium is attached to glycine, which is an amino acid. This changes everything about how your body handles it. The absorption rate for magnesium glycinate is approximately 80%.
So we are comparing 4% to 80%. That is a 20 times improvement. That's not just a margin of error. That's a completely different product.
Correct. And that is exactly why you can take a high-quality magnesium glycinate supplement and feel a tangible difference in your sleep or your muscle tension within a matter of days. Whereas you can take an oxide supplement for years and see zero change in your actual physiology.
That is the big insight right there. The form matters way more than the dose. If you are taking a massive dose of the wrong form, you're just making expensive urine.
Or expensive waste.
Right. Now, this concept, this hierarchy of minerals, it applies to a lot more than just magnesium, right? It's a broader pattern.
It applies to almost every single mineral. We call the good ones chelated minerals. Chelation is essentially wrapping the mineral in an amino acid. It's like putting it in a protein suit to trick the body into absorbing it.
A protein suit, like a disguise.
Exactly like a disguise. Your body loves absorbing amino acids. It has these special VIP channels in the gut lining just for bringing proteins in. But it doesn't always like raw minerals that can be irritating, or they require very specific acidity levels to break down. So if you hide the mineral inside an amino acid, it gets a free pass right through the intestinal wall.
It's a Trojan horse.
Exactly, a benevolent Trojan horse. Let's look at iron for a second. This is a huge one for women especially, or honestly anyone dealing with anemia.
Iron supplements are notorious. People hate taking them. I mean, I have friends who are anemic, but flat out refuse to take the pills because they completely wreck their stomach.
And that's because most of those cheap supplements use ferrous sulfate. It's basically just iron salts.
Yeah.
It has moderate absorption but extremely high side effects. Constipation, nausea, really bad cramping. It's very harsh on the gut lining because a lot of it is not well absorbed, so it just sits there and oxidizes in your gut.
That sounds awful.
It is. But if you look for ferrous bisglycinate, there's that glycinate word again. It has 2 to 3 times better absorption and is much, much gentler on the digestive tract.
So if you have tried iron in the past and quit because you felt sick, you might have just been taking the sulfate form.
Highly likely. Then there is zinc. A lot of those immune support supplements, you know, those fizzy tablets you drop in a glass of water when you feel a cold coming on,
Oh yeah, people chug those all winter.
they often use zinc oxide.
Mhm.
And again, the absorption is terrible, sitting somewhere around 10%. You really want zinc picolinate or zinc bisglycinate, which pushes that absorption rate way up, much closer to 60%.
Okay, so we have covered the minerals pretty well. But what about vitamins?
Mhm.
Specifically the B vitamins.
Mhm.
I feel like this is where things get really scientific, but also really important for everyday energy levels.
This is what I call the B vitamin deception. Let's talk about B12. If you look at your energy drink or your standard cheap multivitamin, turn it over. You will very likely see the word cyanocobalamin.
Cyanocobalamin, it sounds
Yeah.
really chemical.
It is completely synthetic, and if you break down the word cyano, it actually contains a cyanide molecule.
Wait, cyanide, like spy movie poison pill cyanide.
It is a microscopic amount, so it's not going to actually poison you. Don't worry, you aren't going to drop dead from your multivitamin. But biologically speaking, it's highly inefficient. Your body actually has to do work to remove that cyanide molecule and detoxify it before it can even convert the B12 into a usable form.
So you are basically giving your body a chore, not a gift.
Exactly. You're making the liver work for its lunch. Ideally, you want methylcobalamin. That is the form that is already active. It is what is found in nature, and it is far better retained in your tissues.
And then there is folate. This is one I hear about a lot in relation to pregnancy, but it matters for everyone, right? Not just pregnant women.
Crucial for absolutely everyone. It drives methylation, DNA repair, neurotransmitter production. The whole system relies on it. And this brings up the critical distinction between folic acid and methylfolate. Folic acid is the synthetic version. It's what is used to fortify cheap flour and bread. Methylfolate is the active form that you actually find in leafy greens.
And we're going to get into why this matters so much a little later when we talk about genetics. But just know right now, if your bottle says folic acid, that is a massive yellow flag for me.
It's a clear flag that the manufacturer is cutting costs, or they just haven't updated their scientific formulation in 20 years. The clinical data shows that the chemical form of a mineral or vitamin significantly impacts intestinal absorption. The chelated forms and the methylated forms consistently, across the board, outperform the oxides and synthetics.
So step one of fixing your multivitamin issue, read the label. If you see oxide, sulfate, or cyanocobalamin, you are fighting a totally uphill battle against your own biology.
Correct. It's a losing game.
Okay, let's move to the second big segment here. Let's say our listener is proactive. They listen to us. They went out and bought the premium chelated methylated multivitamin. They spent the extra $20. They are feeling really good about themselves, but then they completely mess it up with timing.
Timing is everything. It really just comes down to the basic chemistry of digestion. Just because you swallowed it doesn't mean the door to your bloodstream is open.
I think most people have what I call the all-in-one habit. You wake up, you're super groggy, you grab your handful of pills, the multivitamin, maybe some vitamin D, maybe a fish oil, and you down it all with a giant glass of water on a totally empty stomach. Why exactly is this a mistake?
It fails because it treats all vitamins as if they are chemically identical, but they aren't. They have completely different solubility rules. Some dissolve in water, some dissolve in fat.
Let's break down the fat-soluble ones first. That's A, D, E, and K, right?
Right. Think of these vitamins kind of like oil paint. If you have oil paint on your hands, can you clean it off with just cold water?
No, it just smears around. You need turpentine or a really heavy soap.
Exactly. You need a specific solvent. For vitamins A, D, E, and K, that solvent is dietary fat.
So if you take vitamin D with just a glass of water on an empty stomach,
It literally just sits there. Your body cannot transport it across the intestinal wall effectively at all. You need bile salts to emulsify it, and bile is only released by the gallbladder when you eat actual fat. There was a fascinating study back in 2015 that looked at vitamin D specifically.
what did they find?
They found that taking vitamin D with a meal containing fat increased absorption by up to 32% compared to taking it with a totally fat-free meal.
A 32% increase just by eating a piece of avocado or some eggs with it.
Yes, that is a massive difference in your blood levels over time. If you are taking 5,000 IUs of vitamin D on an empty stomach, you are effectively getting a much, much lower dose than you think. You're shortchanging yourself by a third simply because you didn't eat a piece of cheese or a handful of nuts with it.
So the actionable tip here is pretty simple. Don't take your vitamin D with your dry toast in the morning.
Exactly. Shift those fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K to the largest meal of the day. For most people, that's dinner. Dinner usually has some healthy fats, olive oil, avocado, animal protein.
Dinner. Okay, that makes sense. So what about the water-soluble ones, the B complex and vitamin C?
Those are the exact opposite. They don't need fat to be absorbed. In fact, they are best absorbed when there isn't a whole lot of heavy digestion going on. So morning on an empty stomach or maybe with just a very light breakfast is perfect. And hydration is super key here because your body uses water to transport them and then excretes the excess through your urine.
So we are already seeing a big split in the routine. The all-in-one handful is actually actively sabotaging half your vitamins. You really need a morning stack, which is your B's and C, and an evening stack, which is your A, D, E, and K.
If you really want to optimize your levels, yes, that is absolutely the way to do it.
Now, here is where it gets really interesting, or really annoying, depending on how you look at it. Nutrient competitors. The literal cage match happening in your stomach.
This is a really big one. Certain minerals use the exact same receptors to get from your gut into your blood. It's like a single doorway that only fits one person at a time. If two people try to jam through that doorway at once, nobody gets it.
Who are the biggest rivals in this scenario?
Calcium and iron. They are absolute arch enemies when it comes to absorption. They literally fight for the same transporter protein.
And yet, how many generic multivitamins have both calcium and iron packed into the exact same pill?
Most of them. Or even worse, people take their dedicated iron supplement and they wash it down with a giant glass of milk, thinking they are being super healthy. You know, strong bones and strong blood, right?
That sounds like a classic health halo mistake.
It completely is. The calcium in the milk will bind to the absorption sites, and the iron will just pass right through your system unabsorbed. If you are anemic and you are taking your iron with dairy or with a calcium supplement, you are essentially blocking the iron from working at all. You're actively sabotaging your own treatment.
So what is the practical solution? Just split them up throughout the day.
Split them up. Take your iron in the morning if your stomach can handle it, or maybe with lunch, and then take your calcium in the evening. Or just make sure they are separated by at least 2 full hours.
And speaking of the evening routine, we mentioned magnesium earlier. Why is that typically thought of as an evening supplement?
Really for 2 reasons. One, chemically, it also competes somewhat with other minerals, so giving it its own dedicated slot just helps absorption. But primarily, it's functional. Magnesium strongly supports the parasympathetic nervous system. It's very calming.
It's nature's chill pill.
Exactly. It relaxes smooth muscle tissue throughout the body, so taking it an hour or so before bed can really support sleep quality. Taking it in the morning isn't inherently bad, but you totally miss out on that sleep benefit.
Okay, so we have fixed the form and we have fixed the timing. But the listener says, hey, I'm doing all that perfectly and I still feel like absolute trash. Enter the third variable, the gut health barrier.
This is the leaky bucket analogy. You can buy the most expensive, perfectly bioavailable, perfectly timed vitamin in the world, but if the machinery, meaning your actual gut lining, is broken, it does not matter.
I feel like this is where people get really, really discouraged. They think, I have a great diet, I take good pills, I follow the rules, why isn't it working?
And the answer often lies in underlying conditions they might not even know they have. Things like IBS, leaky gut, undiagnosed celiac disease, or hypochlorhydria.
Hypochlorhydria, that's low stomach acid, right?
Yes, and it's deeply ironic because so many people take over-the-counter antacids for heartburn, assuming they have way too much acid. But very often, chronic heartburn is actually caused by low acid.
Wait, you have to explain that. How does low acid cause heartburn? That sounds completely backward.
It does sound backward.
Yeah.
But if you don't have enough acid, the food you eat just sits in the stomach way too long. It doesn't break down quickly, so it ferments. That fermentation creates gas. That gas creates pressure, which pushes the lower esophageal valve open, and what little acid you do have splashes up into the esophagus. So you feel the burn, you take an antacid, which kills the acid even more, and the cycle just gets progressively worse.
That is wild. And how does that cycle affect your vitamins?
You absolutely need strong stomach acid to break down the physical pills. You also need acid to cleave vitamin B12 away from the dietary proteins it's attached to. If you suppress that acid with medication, or if you just don't produce enough naturally as you age, you physically cannot extract the nutrients. You're basically swallowing pebbles.
You had a really interesting case study about this in our research notes, right? A patient who was doing everything seemingly right.
Yes, a 42-year-old woman. She was incredibly diligent about her health. She had been taking high-dose vitamin D for 2 solid years. And we are talking 5,000 to 10,000 IUs daily.
That is a hefty dose.
Mm.
Her blood levels should be sky high, toxic even, after 2 years of that.
They hadn't budged at all. She was still sitting right at the clinical deficiency line. So we stopped looking at the vitamin and started looking at her gut, and we found she had SIBO. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
Basically, the bad bacteria were throwing a massive party in her small intestine.
Exactly. And the chronic inflammation from that overgrowth was blunting her microvilli. Those are the tiny little finger-like absorbers that line the gut wall. Plus, the bacteria themselves were literally eating her nutrients before her body could absorb them. So we treated the SIBO, we didn't change her diet, we didn't change the vitamin initially, and once the SIBO was cleared out, her vitamin D levels totally normalized in 90 days,
On a lower dose.
on a much lower dose.
That really shows the sheer power of the gut. So for the listener trying to figure this out at home, what are the physical signs that their gut might be the actual problem, aside from just knowing their vitamins aren't working?
Chronic bloating and gas are the obvious ones. If you look pregnant after eating a salad, that's a clue. But here is a very specific one. Greasy or floating stools.
Okay, we are going there. We're doing the poop talk.
We have to. It's an incredibly vital sign of health. If your stool consistently floats, or it looks oily, or it leaves a sort of sheen in the toilet water, or if it's very sticky on the bowl, that is a classic textbook sign of fat malabsorption. It means your body isn't breaking down and absorbing dietary fat.
And if you aren't absorbing fat,
You aren't absorbing vitamins A, D, E, or K, period.
it literally doesn't matter how much vitamin D you take. If your stool is floating, you are just flushing that expensive vitamin straight down the toilet.
Bingo. That is a huge red flag that you need to address your digestion before you worry about your supplement stack.
Are there other historical factors people should look out for?
A history of heavy antibiotic use is a big one. Antibiotics can completely wipe out the microbiome diversity that you actually need to help process certain nutrients. And, like we mentioned, long-term use of acid reflux medications.
The clinical data totally backs this up too. We saw that recent systematic review confirming that intestinal permeability, what people call leaky gut, and microbiome composition strictly dictate the absorption of B vitamins, zinc, and iron. And those happen to be three of the most commonly deficient nutrients in the population. It's definitely not a coincidence.
Not at all. So if you have digestive symptoms, fixing your gut is fixing your vitamin deficiency. You simply cannot separate the two. They are biologically linked.
Let's move on to segment 4. We have to talk about the things in our daily life that are actively robbing us of nutrients, the thieves. And the biggest thieves are very often sitting right there in our medicine cabinet.
The medication depletion effect. This is something doctors very often forget to tell patients when they write a prescription. Most common pharmaceuticals actively deplete specific nutrients as a secondary side effect.
Let's run through the really common ones. We already mentioned PPI's proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux.
Right. By artificially lowering stomach acid, they drastically reduce the absorption of B12 and magnesium. I see clinically low magnesium in chronic PPI users constantly. It's almost a given.
What about metformin? It's arguably one of the most common drugs prescribed for diabetes, and now a lot of people in the anti-aging space are taking it for longevity too.
Metformin is a very well-known B12 depleter. It actually changes the way the gut absorbs B12 in the lower intestine, the ileum. If you are on metformin long-term, you almost certainly need to be supplementing with a high-quality sublingual B12, or you really risk permanent nerve damage over time.
And what about oral contraceptives, the birth control pill?
This is a huge, huge one for women's health that doesn't get talked about enough. The pill is known to significantly deplete B6, B12, folate, zinc, and magnesium.
That is a really long list. That's practically an entire multivitamin in itself.
It is. And if you think about the side effects women very often complain about when they go on the pill, mood changes and depression, which relates to B6 and neurotransmitters, low energy, which is B12, increased anxiety and cramps, which is magnesium, it all connects biochemically.
So if you're on the pill, taking a high-quality multivitamin isn't just a nice little bonus. It's practically a requirement just to stay at your normal baseline.
Exactly. You're constantly having to fill a hole that the medication is constantly digging.
What about the lifestyle saboteurs? The things we do for fun or the things we do to cope with stress?
Well, alcohol is the big one. It is an absolute nutrient wrecking ball. The metabolism of alcohol depletes B vitamins, zinc, and magnesium incredibly rapidly. The liver just burns through them to clear the toxins.
So the horrible hangover you feel the next day isn't just dehydration, it's actually acute nutrient depletion.
Pretty much. That's exactly why IV drips with heavy B vitamins sometimes feel like a miracle cure for hangovers. And then there is stress. Chronic cortisol elevation, being stuck in that fight or flight mode because of work or life, literally burns through vitamin C, zinc, and magnesium like rocket fuel.
Which creates a really nasty, vicious cycle, right? Because you need magnesium to calm the nervous system and handle the stress in the first place.
Correct. You get stressed out, your body dumps magnesium, which makes your nervous system less resilient to stress, so you get even more stressed out over smaller things.
Now let's talk about the genetic factor. You teased this earlier when we were talking about folate, the MTHFR gene.
MTHFR, methylene-tetrahydrofolate reductase.
I always do a double take when I see that written down. It definitely looks like a swear word.
It really does. But it's an incredibly important gene that provides the instructions for making an enzyme that processes folate. And the crazy part is, about 40 to 60% of the population carries a variant or a mutation of this specific gene.
That is a massive chunk of the population, basically half of the people listening to this right now.
Yes. Think of the enzyme like a zipper on a jacket. For most people without the mutation, the zipper works super fast and smooth, zip up, zip down. For people with the MTHFR variant, the zipper is sticky. It works eventually, but it's very slow and highly inefficient.
And this sticky zipper is what's trying to convert the synthetic folic acid into the usable methylfolate.
Exactly. Folic acid is just the raw material. Methylfolate is the finished active product your cells actually use. If you have the sticky zipper and you dump a huge dose of synthetic folic acid from a cheap vitamin into the system, it just piles up. It creates a massive biochemical traffic jam.
So if you have this mutation, which again, you probably wouldn't even know you have unless you do genetic testing, and you take a multivitamin that proudly lists folic acid on the back.
It can be highly problematic. The unconverted folic acid can actually build up in your bloodstream. And some research suggests that this unconverted folic acid might even block the cellular receptors for the real active folate.
Wow. So it's not just useless, it's actually clogging the system and making things worse.
Potentially, yes. That is exactly why, if you don't know your genetic status, the absolute safest bet is to just take a multivitamin that uses methylfolate. It is the pre-converted form. It completely bypasses the broken enzyme. It works efficiently for everyone, whether you have the mutation or not.
That is a phenomenal safety tip. Just go straight to the methylfolate, bypass the sticky zipper entirely.
Exactly. But, as we discussed, cheap multivitamins almost always use folic acid because it's pennies on the dollar to manufacture.
Of course it is. So how do we know if we are actually in trouble? Segment 5 is all about the warning signs. You are taking the vitamins every day, but clearly something is wrong. What are the physical red flags people should look out for?
The very first one is persistent, unexplainable fatigue. If you are sleeping 7 or 8 solid hours a night and you are still waking up feeling like you got hit by a truck, your B vitamins or your iron might simply not be absorbing.
What about external signs, things you can actually see in the mirror?
Hair and nails are the classic indicators. In triage terms, these are luxury tissues to the body. If your body is running low on critical nutrients, it instantly cuts off supply to the hair and nails first to save the vital organs like the heart and brain. So sudden hair loss, diffuse thinning, or brittle nails that constantly peel are very early warning signs of malabsorption.
What about muscle cramps? I hear that one a lot.
Especially at night. That is the classic Charlie horse that wakes you up screaming. That usually strongly signals a magnesium or potassium shortage in the muscle tissue.
And nerve symptoms.
This one is very serious. Numbness or a weird tingling sensation in the hands and feet. We call it peripheral neuropathy in the clinic. That is a textbook classic B12 deficiency signal. If you feel that creeping in, do not ignore it. Get your levels checked immediately.
Now, before we finally get to the action plan to fix all of this, we have to address the elephant in the room. Or rather, the gummy bear in the room.
The gummy question, I knew this was coming.
Adults love gummy vitamins. They taste exactly like candy. They are fun to eat. I fully admit I've had them in my pantry. But are they actually working?
Generally speaking, no. I have to take a really hard clinical stance here. They are significantly less effective across the board.
Break my heart, Blake. Tell me why.
First is the chemical stability. Vitamins naturally degrade much faster in that moist, gelatinous gummy matrix than they do in a dry powder capsule. But the really big issue is iron.
What about iron in gummies?
Gummies almost never contain iron. Check the label.
Really? I hadn't even noticed that.
Iron is a heavy metal. It tastes metallic. If you put clinically effective doses of iron into a gummy bear, it would taste like licking a rusty pipe. Nobody would buy it. It also messes with the physical texture. It's corrosive to the gummy structure over time, so manufacturers just leave it out entirely.
So if you are an anemic woman and you are relying on a gummy multivitamin to keep your levels up, you're getting absolutely zero iron.
Zero. None.
That is a massive, massive blind spot for consumers.
It is. And then there is the severe dosing variability. Clinical data analyzing top gummy vitamin brands found shocking variability. Some bottles had way more of a nutrient than the label stated, and some had almost none. It is notoriously difficult to get a precise, uniform dose distributed evenly in a gummy manufacturing process compared to a pressed tablet or a capsule.
Plus, you're just eating sugar.
Plus the added sugars, the glucose syrup, the artificial food dyes, you are essentially taking a piece of candy with a light dusting of unstable vitamins.
Okay, stick to the capsules. I hear you loud and clear.
Sorry to be the fun police.
No, we want the truth. We need the truth. So let's wrap this up with segment 6, the action plan. We have successfully scared everyone about their oxide-filled, malabsorbed, timing-botched gummy vitamins. How do we actually fix it?
Step 1 is very simple. Get tested. Don't guess.
What tests specifically should we ask for? Because if I just go to my GP and say, hey, check my vitamins, they might just run a very basic complete blood count and say I'm fine.
You need to be very specific and advocate for yourself. Ask for serum 25OH vitamin D. Ask for ferritin, and that is crucial because ferritin measures your deep iron storage, not just the free-floating iron in your blood on that specific day. Ask for a dedicated B12 and folate panel.
And there was a very specific trick you mentioned for testing magnesium, right?
Yes, this is so important. Do not get a serum magnesium test.
Why not? Doesn't that show the magnesium in the blood?
It does, but your body works incredibly hard to keep your blood magnesium levels perfectly stable because if blood magnesium drops too low, your heart literally stops beating. So your body will violently steal magnesium from your bones and your muscle tissues just to keep that blood level looking normal.
Wow, so you can be 90% depleted in your actual cells, but your blood test will come back looking totally perfectly normal.
Exactly. It is highly misleading. So what you need to ask for is an RBC magnesium test.
RBC, red blood cell.
Right. Red blood cell magnesium. That actually cracks open the cell and shows what has been stored inside the cells over the last few months. It is an infinitely more accurate picture of your true magnesium status.
Got it. RBC Mag. That's a huge tip. Okay, step 2, the quality control checklist. When I'm standing in the supplement aisle, what am I looking for?
First, look for third-party testing. You want to see a specific seal on the bottle from USP, NSF, or Informed Sport. That means an independent outside lab actually tested it and confirmed that what is printed on the label is actually inside the bottle. Because supplements are not tightly regulated, you need that third-party verification.
And then check the forms we spent so much time talking about.
Yes. Look for methylfolate, not folic acid. Methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. And look for glycinate or picolinate mineral forms, absolutely no oxides. Also, thoroughly check the other ingredients list at the very bottom. Avoid anything with artificial colors like red 40 or stabilizers like titanium dioxide. You really do not need your daily vitamin to be neon purple.
Step 3, strategy. How should we rethink the daily routine?
Stop looking for the magical one pill to rule them all. The perfect all-in-one multivitamin probably doesn't mathematically exist because of all the chemical competition issues we discussed earlier, like calcium-blocking iron.
So we should target our specific individual needs instead.
Exactly, based on your blood work. If you are clinically low in vitamin D, take a dedicated, high-quality vitamin D3 paired with vitamin K2 to ensure it absorbs properly into the bones. If you don't eat wild-caught fish 3 times a week, take a dedicated, high-quality omega-3. Use a basic methylated multivitamin as a very loose baseline insurance policy, but do not rely on it for therapeutic doses to fix a severe deficiency.
And finally, step 4, the food first philosophy.
This is the bedrock. Supplements are exactly that, supplemental. They are meant to add to a solid foundation, not replace it entirely. Whole foods provide complex cofactors, enzymes, and natural fiber that synthetic pills simply cannot mimic in a lab.
An orange is infinitely more complex than just an ascorbic acid vitamin C pill.
Exactly. An orange has hundreds of naturally occurring phytochemicals and bioflavonoids that actively help that vitamin C absorb and do its job in your cells. A diverse, colorful diet fundamentally limits your need for massive, expensive supplementation.
So just to rapidly recap the key takeaways for everyone listening today. Number 1, check your labels tonight. If you see the word oxide, put it back on the shelf. Look for chilate or glycinate. Number 2, master your timing. Take your fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, K with your dinner. Take your water solubles in the morning. Number 3, do not mix your iron supplements with your milk or your calcium pills. Number 4, if you have digestive issues like floating stools or chronic bloating, fix your gut first because your vitamins aren't getting in anyway. And number 5, Test, do not guess. Specifically ask for RBC magnesium and ferritin.
That sums up the protocol perfectly.
So taking a step back, what does this all mean for us functionally?
I think the biggest takeaway here is simply realizing that health isn't a passive act. You can't just buy your way out of it with a pill organizer. The biological gap between swallowing a capsule and actually correcting a cellular deficiency is vast. It involves complex chemistry, human biology, and strategic timing.
And knowledge is power here. Turning a very expensive morning habit into a genuine, measurable health investment starts with just reading the back of the label, deeply understanding your own body signals, and actually talking to your doctor to get the right tests.
Absolutely. And once you finally dial this in, once you get the right chemical form, taken at the exact right time of day, the difference in how you physically feel can be profoundly life-changing. That afternoon energy finally comes back, the mental brain fog lifts, you stop cramping at night. It is more than worth the effort to get this right.
I want to leave everyone with one final thought to mull over. We talked a lot about the food first philosophy today, but consider this. Modern agricultural practices have severely depleted the mineral content of our soil over the last 100 years. So even if you eat the most perfect, organic, diverse diet imaginable, the broccoli you eat today physically contains less magnesium and zinc than the broccoli your grandparents ate. Which means understanding the science of proper bioavailable supplementation isn't just a biohacking luxury anymore. It might actually be a modern necessity.
That is a slightly terrifying but very necessary point to end on.
Well, that is it for today's deep dive. If you got value out of this and want to optimize your health further, please hit the subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more intense topics coming up where we unpack the hidden science of everyday health.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.